Hello and welcome to the Tough Cover Podcast. I am your host, Mark Hemme Jr., and you can follow me at Mark Hemme Jr. _ and you can follow the podcast at Tough Cover Pod, and you can follow the Painted Lines where you're hearing this or streaming this at the Painted Lines, and give at Everything's Fine a follow as well, a Philly sports podcast I do with Kyle Pagan, as well as at Fox PHL The Gambler, a radio station in Philadelphia that you can get on iHeartRadio. Go look up Sean Brace, and you can go get that link. And you can see my content in all of those places. So on today's show, we go over my picks for Week 7 in the NFL. Nothing I liked in the NBA tonight, so I stuck in the NFL. If you have any thoughts about my picks, leave them in the comments. If you have any picks of your own, leave them in the comments. I'll give you my thoughts. So before we get there, we went 7-3 yesterday overall and made 12 units. So it's been a great October. Not quite as good as September. September was all time. But so let's go over my record in October before we get to my picks of the day. In the MLB, I'm 14-14-1, down 5 units. In college football, I'm 17-23, up 2 units. In the NFL, which we're here to talk about today, I'm 25-11-1 in the NFL, up 32 units. And in the NBA, I am 12-6, up 51 units on the young season because of a 29-unit parlay. So we are 68-57-2 in the month of October, up 80 units. Shout out to that plus 2,900 parlay. And we have a why the hell not plus 2,300 parlay today. And I'll get to that at the end of the pod. So stick around to hear that. It cashed last time I gave it out on the podcast. At 1 o'clock, we are going to start it off in the Washington football team Green Bay Packers game. I'm going to keep this quick. I got a little bit of a cold going, so I don't want to bother you guys too much with my voice. So for 4 units, I've got over 47.5 in the Washington Green Bay game. I know the Washington over trend didn't hit last week, but it should have. Mahomes had a red zone pick. That was his fault. There was a red zone fumble, and there was another pick at midfield that was dropped by Tyreek Hill into the Washington hands that killed a drive, and there was a field goal within the 5 in that game. That game should have went over. I still believe that. I'll continue riding Washington overs, especially since it's back down into the 40s. Washington has allowed the most points in football and the second most yards per game. Washington's run defense is 12th. So this is clearly a pass the ball game, up tempo for Green Bay. They're going to throw it all over the yard. The over is 4-1 in the last 5 Washington games. Green Bay has not scored less than 24 in their last 5 games during their 5-game winning streak, in which they are averaging over 28 points per game. Rodgers has 12 touchdowns and 1 pick in that streak. I hope we get back to the trend of Washington overs cashing in the third quarter, or else I'll have to reevaluate this whole Washington overs life I've been living. So let's stay in that game. I'm going to surprise you here. This is a late ad today. This is my least confident play of the day. I've got the Washington football team plus 8.5 at the Green Bay Packers for 2 units. Heinicke was given the full-time starter job with Fitzpatrick still on crutches. So as the leader of the Heinicke Hive, I have to take one last stand. It hasn't been great the last couple of weeks, but Green Bay has shown time and time again that they will let teams hang around. And if you let Heinicke hang around, he will cover. The Packers only beat the Bears and Steelers by 10 points. They only beat the Bengals by 3 and the Niners by 2. They let teams hang, and I think Heinicke will hang. So I'll take Washington plus 8.5 for 2 units. So let's get to one of my favorite plays of the day, and I'm actually going to give it to you at a worse value than it's at right now. So you can even get it at a better number than I got it at. I took it early, and I'll explain why. But I like the Atlanta Falcons minus 2.5 at the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins are a trendy underdog pick here, getting 44% of the bets, but 60% of the money, to the point where this line has moved to 2 or even 1.5 in some places, depending on where you look. I locked it in early at 2.5 to avoid getting it to 3 or above a field goal. I didn't want to take them above a field goal because, they could easily win this game by a field goal. So while the Falcons have been outgained by 7 yards per game, I'm not going to try to tell you that the Falcons are an excellent team or they're going to compete for the playoffs. The Dolphins have been outgained by 128 yards per game. That is just an outrageous number. And then, I really think that there shows you that there is kind of levels to this being bad business in the NFL. And I think the Falcons are on another level talent-wise than the Miami Dolphins, at least at this moment, with a lot of injuries for Miami. And road favorites in this spot off of a bye are 64-33-2, hitting at a 66% clip. Falcons are coming off of a bye, while the Dolphins are coming off of a soul-crushing loss and flight home from London. I don't know if you can bounce back after a loss like that and come home and win. Matt Ryan, also 5-2 off of a bye as a road favorite. So I love the spot for the Falcons, hate the spot for the Dolphins. The Dolphins are also dealing with injuries to Byron Jones and Xavier Howard, their best cornerbacks, which should set up big games for Cordero Patterson, Calvin Ridley, and Kyle Pitts. So with Patterson finally being used in a great way, with Kyle Pitts breaking out in London, and with Ridley back after taking time off for a personal matter, I would be very surprised if Atlanta doesn't put up points. And if Atlanta doesn't win this game, I don't think Miami can hang with them on the scoreboard. So give me Falcons 30-17. I think they win by at least a touchdown. So give me Falcons -2.5. It's down to -1.5 or -2. So go take it at whatever best number you can find it. Go line shop it around. So let's get to my best bet, my play of the day, my lock of the day. Patriots -6.5 versus the Jets, 7.5 units to win 7 units. Bill Belichick is 22-6 against rookie QBs and 13-0 at home. Former Jets rookie Geno Smith is the last rookie quarterback to beat Bill Belichick. The Pats were 5.5-point favorites in week 2 in New York, which I hammered to a 25-6 route and cover. And this should have been worse. The Patriots went 3 for 12 on third down in that game. Mac Jones only threw for 180 yards, and they could not score touchdowns, kicked a ton of field goals. If the Pats offense even plays average, they will win by multiple touchdowns today. There's only a point of adjustment for MetLife to Gillette. This was a 5.5-point spread last time, and it's a 6.5-point spread in New England. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think this should be a bigger number. I think this should be up around 9.5. So I love Pats -6.5 here. There's a couple stats here. I mean, every stat you look at is going to tell you that the Jets are a bad football team, but here's a couple. The Jets have yet to intercept the pass. They are the only NFL team to not have a pick. The Jets are last in EPA per play. The Jets are 32nd in passing. The Jets are 32nd in offensive DVOA. In the first half of games, the Jets have a quarterback rating of 21.5 and 0 touchdowns to 6 picks. New York has been outscored 30-0 in the first quarter and gained just 79 total yards in the first quarter through 5 games. These numbers are outrageous, but the biggest number, then the craziest number to me, is they've been outscored 75-13 in the first half of games. That is just insane. Zach Wilson has thrown at least one INT in every game. That streak continues and leads me to my other bet in this game. Jets team total under 17.5 for 2 units on BetMGM. The Jets have broken into the 20s the last 2 weeks, but they scored 20 points in their first 3 games, averaging less than 7 points per game in their first 3 games, being shut out and scoring 6 against New England once. You just heard all the numbers I spewed at you, the rookie QB Belichick numbers. Now let's look into the rivalry. The Jets will be trying to snap the Patriots' 11-game win streak in this series. The Jets haven't beaten New England since Week 16 of the 2015 season. New York's last regular season win in New England was 34-31 in 2008. The Jets haven't scored more than 14 points in their last 5 trips to Foxborough. You remember what happened in Week 2 in that 25-6 loss that I mentioned earlier. That game was in New York. This game is in New England. I don't know how many ways I can say that. I think it's going to get even uglier this week. Pats -6.5, 7.5 units to win 7 units. Jets team total under 17.5 for 2 units. So let's move on to my next game. This is actually the game I don't have any notes on because it's the Eagles. It's the Birds. I know what I'm talking about here. I'm taking Eagles +3.5 at the Raiders for 2 units. Eagles money line at the Raiders, 4 units to win 6 units. And I'm taking Jalen Hurts as an anytime touchdown scorer at +160. 3 units to win 5 units. Let me touch on that one first. The last 2 games, Jalen Hurts has scored 2 touchdowns apiece. He's scored touchdowns in 3 of his 6 games, rushing for a total of 5 rushing touchdowns. So you're saying he's scored in 50% of the games, and in 2 of those games, he has scored multiple times, and I'm getting +160. I think I was actually, when I first thought to go check what the odds were here, I was expecting -130, -140, +160. I think he has a better than 50-50 chance of scoring a rushing touchdown today. I think they're going to spread out the offense, especially when they get in close. I think they're going to do a better job using Jalen Hurts as a runner going forward, and I think you can do that against this Raiders team and against this Raiders D-line that could force him out of the pocket. So I like Jalen Hurts to score a touchdown at +160. Now let's talk about the game. Like I said, Eagles +3.5 for 2 units, Eagles money line 4 units to win 6 units. So the reason I like the Eagles in this game doesn't have a lot to do with stats. There's not a lot of breakdown. There's not a lot of what are the Raiders vulnerable in? What are the Raiders strong at? What are the Eagles strong at? What are the Eagles vulnerable in? There's not a lot of that. It's mostly the fact that it's the same reason I bet on the Raiders last week. When Gruden went down, when Gruden got fired, when Gruden resigned, whatever you want to say, the whole NFL issue, the emails, when Gruden left, you knew if you follow football, if you gamble pretty consistently, you knew that the Raiders were going to come out with their hair on fire. It happens in college. It happens in the pros. When a coach gets fired, when a coach resigns, the team usually comes out swinging. And we saw that last week with the Raiders for Rich Bisaccia, who's like an interim coach who's been a coach in the NFL for 50 years. All these guys respect him. All these guys love him, yada, yada, yada. When it comes down to it, this staff is still mostly John Gruden guys. So I don't know how hard this team is going to play for this staff continuously and every single week in and week out like clockwork. I don't know. They got up last week, and how much of it was the Raiders getting up and how much of it is just how bad the Broncos are. We saw what the Broncos weren't able to do against Cleveland on Thursday night, and it wasn't just Cleveland. It was the Case Keenum, Dearness Johnson, Demetric Felton, Cleveland Browns. No Kareem Hunt, no Nick Chubb, no Case Keenum. Missing guys on defense like JOK and others. The Denver Broncos lost to a bad Browns team. That Broncos team also got kind of smacked in the face and smacked around by the Raiders last week. And I think that gave a lot of people confidence about the Raiders. Now, all of that, trends, all those things that tell you that you should bet on the Raiders last week in a bounce back spot, coming off of 2 losses, in a spot coming off of their coach being fired. All of that is invariably attached with a letdown spot the next week. And I think that letdown spot is coming this week. The Eagles need a win here more than the Raiders need a win. And the best part of all of this, Darren Waller announced as questionable yesterday and is now apparently doesn't feel great. And he's a game time decision, is trending towards not playing probably. So that's not great at all. I like Darren Waller. He's a great player, but he is the scariest part of this matchup for the Eagles. I know we've done a good job against tight ends. We've done a good job against Kyle Pitts, George Kittle, Travis Kelce. Darren Waller is a freak. He's different than any of those guys. He's an athlete. He can take it 80 yards. So if they don't have to worry about Darren Waller offensively, it's literally just going to be Derek Carr doing what he does best and just cooking it up with no weapons. And I'm not saying Derek Carr can't beat us, but if you take Waller away from him, that offense is a lot easier to scheme against, especially since their running game has not been anything special. So I think we see an Eagles win today. And like I said on many Eagles podcasts, everything's fine. And all the podcasts that you hear me on, like I said, I'll freak out about the Eagles once they lose to a team that didn't just come off a Super Bowl in the last 2 years, or Dallas, who looks like a wagon. So if they lose to the Raiders, I'll start kind of joining the angry mob. But I think they don't. I think they win. I think they cover. Obviously, if I think they win, I think they cover. And like I said earlier, I think Jalen Hurts scores a touchdown. So Eagles plus 3.5 for 2 units. Eagles money line 4 units to win 6 units. Jalen Hurts touchdown score 3 units to win 5 units. Got 9 units spread across that Eagles game, all basically on the Eagles. But we're going to see how that goes. And this kind of is another Eagles bet here. It's the most connected bet to the Eagles, at least. And I like the Indianapolis Colts plus 4.5 on Sunday Night Football at the 49ers for 3 units. Now, what are you guys going to say to me? You guys are going to say, oh, Mark, you can't root for the Colts. We have their first-round pick. But let's be realistic. If the Colts start 2-5 and the Titans are 2 games ahead of them or whatever, how many ever games that they would be after this week, the Colts are going to eventually bench Carson Wentz. They need to win enough games to trick themselves into thinking they're in the playoff contention, and then they need to go 6-11, 7-10, and then we get that 10th to 15th pick. I'd be very happy with that situation. We were never going to get the 4th pick while they were bad all season. It was never going to work out like that. So I do think we have to root for the Colts here and there in certain spots, and I think this is one of those spots against a team that, if we do have any hopes of the wild card, the 49ers could be a back-end team in the wild card race. And Kyle Shanahan, a guy that I'm a big fan of. I've defended Kyle Shanahan many times. But Kyle Shanahan and Damian Lillard have something in common. Bad favorites, great underdogs for gambling purposes. The 49ers are 5-22-1 as a home favorite in their last 28 against the spread. Both of these teams have 2 wins, but I think they're trending in opposite directions. Indy is 4-2 against the spread. San Fran is 2-3 against the spread. And the main reason that I love Indy in this game is the weather. The Colts defense is number 1 against the run. So Jimmy G and San Fran need to win this game through the air. That's how you beat the Indianapolis Colts. Lamar threw for over 400 yards. And it's going to be bad weather in San Francisco, which benefits Jonathan Taylor and the Indianapolis Colts run defense. If this game is won in the trenches, I'll side with Indy and Quentin Nelson, Notre Dame legend. Shout out Notre Dame for beating USC yesterday, by the way. Had to fit that in there. I'll side with Indy here in this matchup of the trenches. I also love taking the underdog over a field goal when I think it's 50-50 or better that they win outright, in my opinion. And I love taking 4.5 in what is being described as insane weather and a quote-unquote bomb cyclone. So that is partially why I love the Colts getting 4.5 points here. Colts plus 4.5 at the 49ers for 3 units. And then my why the hell not parlay, which is 1-0. I hit a plus 2,900 parlay, which gave me 29 units, going back to the well at plus 2,300. 5-way money line parlay, putting 1 unit down to win 23. Falcons money line, Panthers money line, Patriots money line, Eagles money line, Colts money line. Falcons over Dolphins, Panthers over Giants, Pats over Jets, all at 1 o'clock. If they all hit, you watch the Eagles at 4:05. Now, if all of that hits, we have 1 unit to win 23 units on Colts money line on Sunday Night Football. So why not? As the name of the parlay says, why the hell not? So thanks for joining me. Thanks for being a part of the Tough Cover Click. Go give at Mark Henry Jr. a follow. Follow at Tough Cover Pod. Follow at The Painted Lines. Follow at Everything's Fine. And follow at Fox PHL The Gambler. You can see my content in all of those places. But for now, enjoy the winners.